Good evening and welcome to Second Look Saturday. I'm Jonathan Carmody. Would you ever imagine hiring a coach that was still under investigation that you did not know about until a video surfaced like this? Take a look at this video clip. This was a video clip of this coach right here who was under investigation last year because of what he did. Now, this video sparked controversy throughout the Robstown community. In it, it shows of this coach yelling at students because he didn't do better. But what raises questions is, why wasn't he investigated in the first place right before this incident? What did the community feel about this? As we start to take another look into this video, there's a lot more questions being raised. Here's Tyrese Moore with our Give Her a Second Look.
Earlier this week, we told you about how Robstown ISD hired Benketti High School coach Rusty Miller, despite the fact that he's under investigations due to an incident involving a student. I'm Tyrese Moore, your neighborhood news reporter in Robstown, with the video that was released involving the incident.
Seconds into the surveillance video obtained by Chris 6 News, you can see Coach Rusty Miller escorting two people out of the school's field house and shouting, then lunging at one of his baseball players who was sitting at the table with his teammates. We should point out, this copy does not contain audio. Miller then points to the door. As the team gets up, Miller grabs the player and stops him from getting up from his chair. Miller continues to scream at the player before stepping back and screaming at the rest of the team. The coach, again, slams the table twice before knocking over a stool, all while the players sit motionless. Someone dropped off a copy of the video at our Chris 6 News studios. Benketti school leaders confirmed its authenticity, and the April 9th incident launched their investigation into the longtime coach. Chris 6 News asked Benketti ISD superintendent about this video. Stacy Johnson said the following.
We immediately issued discipline in accordance to local policy. He was placed on administrative leave. He is currently on administrative leave through the end of his contract and will not be returning to Benketti ISD.
On Monday, the Robstown ISD School Board hired Miller as its new head baseball coach. I reached out to the superintendent in Robstown, along with the Board of Trustees and the district's athletic director. Most have not returned our calls or emails. One trustee answered our call but referred us to the superintendent. The superintendent in Robstown says his district is excited to welcome Coach Miller.
We are aware of, what some questions and concerns parents may have had or may have. But in Robstown ISD, I want to be really clear. We're a district that's going to extend grace and offer second chances where appropriate.
Chris 6 News is continuing to follow this developing story. In Robstown, your neighborhood news reporter Tyrese Boone, Chris 6 News.
Predator
Now the question is he still placed on administrative leave, or was he fired, or was he back? We may not know, but in my opinion, he probably left or resigned because of what he did. That doesn't get, look, if you're angry about something your team lost, don't give yourself the right to say, okay, I'm pissed off, I'm ready to go at my team because they lost the game. Calmly. Don't make them run laps as punishment, There's always going to be a next time. There's always going to be a next time. People may say, well, we don't have second chances. There's people that say, well, we're looking at second chances. Well, you fire somebody, there probably won't be second chances because of the issue that happened. You should not be doing something like this. And believe me, if I wanted to shout at my team members, if I wanted to shout at them for not doing a good job, believe me, if this wanted to happen to me, then this would happen to me. I would not be one of those types of people out there that would sit there and, yell at my team, yell at my players for not doing a good job, and go at them hard and say, well, you didn't do a very good job. Yes, I'd be angry, but everyone loses. We gotta learn to accept that everyone loses. Everyone may not go to state championship. Everybody not want to. Every team member doesn't want to go to state championship. Every team may win. It always takes practice, You've got to have practice. That's what it is, because nobody practices, because a lot of team members are cheating their way just to get to the top. You know, we talked about no pass, no play. Well, this coach was not going to pass from the school district because of his behavior. Now, if I was in the coach's shoes, I would have done something different. I would have stayed calm about it and realized that, hey, and had them being punished. Nobody would want to see that happen, and of course, nobody would want to see somebody getting attacked or getting yelled at or getting fussed at. But it's just a way of life, you know. I side with the victims, because this coach right there, what he did was just unacceptable. And still, there's not going to be any next time for this coach. I hope his ass really gets fired because of his actions. Believe me, I have coaches up there that would never do something like that, but if they did, I probably would never forgive myself. A teacher is fired for cheating on a test, and a teacher fired for saying nigga or the N-word. Next, 2 of those stories. Still to come, janitors. Please stay with us. I've tried my best to keep racism out of this broadcast, but education is key. And when I started looking into teachers using racial slurs, it just really got underneath my skin that a teacher would say a racial slur. Something like this.
You're idiots! Education! When you want to be a little punk-ass nigger, he's gonna get shot!
So it was in Baltimore. This teacher had berated her students and used racial slurs. It went viral, and the school had fired her. But this mother, whose son recorded the video, is defending her son's teacher.
Was all the way wrong. So I know her.
But this is what the mother says.
Her message was right, her delivery was all the way wrong. So I know her. Never once do I think that she's a racist. No, if you listen to the video, she clearly says, you feel me? No education means no job. It means you can't get a job.
Well, I agree with what she's saying, but I don't agree with the way she handled it. Nobody should... Nobody should... No white person should be given the N-word pass. Whip up to 1,000 pieces. I don't care what you do. Nobody should be able to get the N-word pass. You may be friends with a black person, but that doesn't give you the right to give out the N-word pass. Because now when you say N-word, you are racist. I mean, you may just sit there and rap a few Jay-Z songs or 50 Cent songs. That may not be, it may be the case here, but when you go up to somebody and say, you broke-ass nigger, you are a racist. But believe me, like I've said previously, I would never call a female a bitch or a whore, and I would never say the N-word in front of a black person. But if I did those things, number one, with all the female friends, with all my lady friends, we would not be friends anymore. Because bitch and a whore and a hoe, those are derogatory words and are disgraceful. I have a mother. Do I think it's clever to disrespect women? Absolutely not. I don't ever call somebody the B word or the H word or the W word. If I did, that's the line I would cross and would never come through again. But still, going into the N-word controversy. If that were to happen, if it were to happen, I would never. But if I did, if I came up to a black person and said either nigga or nigger, they would beat the crap out of me. I don't know why I'm smiling when I say this, but if that were to happen to me, if I said nigger or nigga, they would beat the crap out of me. I would say shiftless, lazy, and ignorant. I would not say the actual word. I don't get a pass from somebody. But this teacher years ago, he did. And as we first told you when we talked about racist teachers, he probably didn't get the message and was also on the boondocks. Take a look at our second look.
People into the derogatory racial remark that has divided people for many years.
And a Jefferson County high school teacher has now received the longest suspension on record for calling a student the N-word. WIJ's Lucas Renee Murphy investigates what happened and why in this story you'll only see on 11.
Valley Traditional High School is in the middle of a racial controversy right now. A teacher used the N-word towards a student. The word is only 6 letters long, but the impact is far-reaching. And we do want to warn you that some of the language in this story is strong. It may offend you, it may offend some other people. But since this story is not just about the N-word, it's also about the teacher's intent and definition of the word, we have decided to leave it in the story for you to decide.
And what did he say specifically to you?
Sit down, nigga.
Keyshawn Chambers is a freshman at Valley High School, a Boy Scout, a football player, a member of the ROTC, an honor roll student. He was hanging around his teacher's classroom door in December. The teacher told him to sit down, and the teacher says that Keyshawn used the N-word first.
And I just kind of was stunned a second. Well, then get away from the door, nigga. And I repeated the same insult because that's sort of what I've been trained to do.
The school district says that is not what they trained English teacher Paul Dawson to do.
He tried to say I said it, and I didn't say it, and no one else in the class knows that I said it, because I didn't.
Documents from the school investigation show that several of the students interviewed from Valley did not hear Keyshawn say the N-word first. Dawson says that students use the slang version of the N-word at Valley High School all the time. He says N-I-G-G-E-R is a racial slur, but says that students use N-I-G-G-A as often as they say dude or hey man. And Dawson says as much as he does not like the word, he still used the slang version to feel more comfortable with black students.
Why is this word used so frequently? So I just don't understand it, and I'm trying to understand it. I need help. Yes, I use nigga. I've used it. I admit it. I put the H on it to emphasize it's nigga. Nigga this, nigga please, nigga. Can you lend a nigga a pencil?
What kind of example are you setting for your students if you use a word that you don't want them to use?
Upon reflection, that's not good.
Dawson was suspended for 10 days without pay from January 9th to January 23rd, and he has to go to diversity training. He says that he's learned from this experience and hopes that others think twice before using the N-word.
I will never say any form of nigga. I'm cured of that.
Paul Dawson says that he is sorry for the way things were handled, but Keyshawn says that he is not looking for any apologies.
Apologizing is going to change the fact that it happened and he's not been punished.
And punishment in your mind is?
Not having his job anymore.
Paul Dawson says that he wants there to be a steadfast policy in Jefferson County Public Schools against people using the N-word. Right now, when it is brought up, it's dealt with on a case-by-case basis with the district. And we should mention that Keyshawn is still in Paul Dawson's classroom. Dawson has been with the district for 20 years, and Keyshawn isn't still in that classroom because Dawson is an honors English teacher. There are very few honors English classes, so he is still with him.
Well, now he was suspended for a while, but is he back teaching?
He is back teaching now, and he still does have his job. But this is not the first time that Paul Dawson has been suspended from Jefferson County Public Schools. Coming up at 5:30, we'll tell you what happened before, we'll tell you about his plan to appeal the suspension, and why the district says that he should keep his job. Thank you very much. I'm sure we haven't heard the last of this. Oh no, lots more to come.
There would have been lots more to come. But again, he said the N-word. Shouldn't he be fired? Yes, he should. But should he also be ordered to take the Implicit association test or the IAT? You might think, what the fuck is the IAT? When we come back, we're going to show you an example of the Implicit association test and you're going to see me for the first time take the input association test. Please stay with us. So we took a second look into teachers that said the N-word, which brings up another question. Are you prejudiced? Many people answer no, but how would you feel about taking a test to prove that you're not prejudiced? Many people have never heard of the Implicit association test. Basically, it's a test to determine what types of people that you would prefer, whether it be black or white, or both black and white. So now I'm going to show you the test, and you'll see me first time take this test. Here's Sarah James with a Give 'em a Break second look. And also, I should point out, we first talked about the Implicit association test several years ago on this broadcast. I think it was... We first told you about this 3 years ago. And 3 years later, you're still going to see me take that same test. Which one do I prefer? Here's Sarah James with a Give 'em a Break second look.
Police do say the 4 officers unloaded 41 rounds inside this vestibule and Diallo was killed.
An unarmed black man killed in a hail of 41 bullets by 4 white New York City police officers. What happened to Amadou Diallo led to a high-profile New York trial.
Not guilty.
An explosive verdict.
Was your verdict unanimous?
Yes.
And endless debate. Some thought the verdict was just.
The guy was shot because the officers thought he had a gun.
Others, just an outrage.
Unarmed man, no police record, nothing.
Same verdict, opposite reactions. Why is it that we often see the same thing so differently when race is a factor?
You may be saying, not me, I'm not prejudiced. But is it possible that virtually all of us have a hidden racial bias, hidden even from ourselves? That's exactly what this test is designed to uncover. Here's how it works. These words and faces appear rapidly, one after another, around the screen. The test taker is supposed to link each one to the left or right box here in the center, linking positive words like friend to good, negative words like awful to bad, white faces with white, black faces with black. And it's the mistakes that are so revealing.
We find that frequently. Some people are disturbed by their results.
Ready? Go.
Dateline put this experiment to a difficult challenge, testing a cross-section of men and women, including some who have impeccable credentials in race relations. People like Rhonda, a civil rights attorney.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, here it is.
During the first half of the test, black is linked to bad and white is linked to good.
Right.
For Rhonda, this half of the test is a breeze. She never makes a mistake.
Left.
Okay, very good. Now, we'll give you the other one.
But let's see how she does when the information is reversed. When the left box, marked bad, has a white face, and the right box, labeled good, has a black face.
Left, left.
Suddenly
right,
the test
right,
becomes much more
right,
difficult
left.
for Rhonda. About a third of the way through, she makes a mistake, linking the white face to the right box, even though that shows a black face.
I lost it.
Okay.
Rhonda's score indicates a strong preference for white. Is this because she unconsciously associates white with good?
Well, I could tell when I was taking it, I had so much of an easier time doing the white with good, much to my dismay.
We all might be prejudiced in ways we're not aware.
Mazarin Banaji of Yale University and Anthony Greenwald of the University of Washington created this test.
What do you think this test reveals that perhaps we didn't know before? How fair are we being when we judge a person?
Okay.
Betsy, an events planner, had similar results.
Left, right.
Once again, on the part of the test which associates black with good and white with bad, a white test taker flounders.
Right. I don't know.
You hold it together almost to the end.
Betsy's test shows a preference for white.
There would be many people who would say, What's wrong with showing a preference for your own race?
In some contexts, it's actually illegal to do so. In employment contexts, in college admissions.
But what does all this prove? Like the other participants, Jeff first took the test individually on a computer, and his test too revealed a preference for white. But he refused the subsequent studio test, saying he doesn't think the experiment reveals anything at all.
I think the test for a person like myself, who has some spatial difficulties and left-right difficulties, is questionable.
Professor Banaji, Jeff is questioning your test.
Well, Jeff's experience is not unusual. Let's say you are having spatial difficulties, or let's say you've never used a computer before. It could easily have been the case that if that was the problem, that we could see a strong preference for black over white, but that didn't happen.
In fact, this experiment has passed scientific scrutiny. And the results of the professor's experiments have been published in leading psychological journals. Our results reflect the professor's findings.
Something like 79 or 80% of white Americans who take the test show a preference for white over black.
And as revealing as those results are, the biggest surprise is yet to come.
Left.
Joan is a sales and marketing consultant. Even for many black test takers, the more challenging part of the test seems to be when black is associated with good and white with bad.
Okay, didn't get halfway through. We'll start over. Ready, set.
After 2 attempts, she still can't make it to the end.
I've done it again.
Even so, Joan still thought she'd show a preference for her own race.
Would you be surprised then, Joan, if I said that your test showed a slight preference for whites?
Yes, I would be.
Does it shock you?
Yes.
You're flabbergasted.
I'm flabbergasted.
And Joan isn't alone. Dennis is the leader of a civil rights organization. According to his test in the studio, Dennis is neutral, but his individual computer test showed a preference for white. His response?
All we had in images were whites through the type of media outlets that we were exposed to during my age generation, and that was a constant reinforcement over and over again.
Of the African Americans the professors have tested, 42% show a preference for whites. A large number, especially when you consider that only 17% of whites show a preference for blacks.
Go.
Left, right.
And what of the other African Americans we tested?
Right.
Heather is an assistant district attorney.
Right.
On the part of the test where the black face is paired with the word bad, Heather has noticeable difficulty and can't finish. She showed a strong preference for African Americans, and her pride was unabashed.
This made me feel more comfortable knowing that I've embraced my culture.
Left.
Randolph, a high school music teacher, also showed a preference for his own race.
Does it concern you at all that you have a strong preference for African Americans?
Does that score mean that I do not like European Americans? No. Is my subconscious aware of the condition that African Americans are in this country at this particular point? My conscious is.
According to the research, 48% of African Americans have a preference for their own race.
That's exactly what it comes out as, a strong preference for blacks, and it doesn't...
The professors note that there's a difference in reactions between blacks and whites when they find out they have a preference for their own race.
Of course it bothers me, but...
You could say it's pride or prejudice. What blacks consider a badge of healthy self-esteem, many whites regard as an embarrassing revelation.
When I did poorly on the black being good, is it because I can't come to say that I'm bad? And is it just in our nature that there has to be an us and a them? And them is going to be the bad guy.
The professors say this test also reveals something else, something more subtle but equally important, that even unconscious racial biases may affect your behavior. For instance, do white teachers unconsciously favor white students?
Right.
Jennifer teaches 6th grade.
Right. Jennifer, your score came out as a strong preference for white. Do you believe that those unconscious attitudes for whites affects your teaching? I would hope not. I don't view people by what they look like. I view people on what they can do and what they feel and how they are.
Jennifer says she consciously strives to treat students equally. But psychologists say all teachers should be aware that hidden biases can still seep through. And teachers aren't alone. What happens when a police officer has an unconscious bias against a citizen?
If a police officer is going to shoot 0.2 of a second faster at an African American than a European American, well, that could be a matter of life and death.
These aren't just words and faces on a screen, not just abstract images. This test suggests that when it comes to the potent question of race, our subconscious is making decisions every day, decisions that in real time, in real life, have real consequences.
When you choose the behavior, you choose the consequences. That's basically the whole key. Now, let's take the input association test together. You can find this all over the internet. And believe me, if you take this test, you'll know what you're strongly project. And if you want to take this test, what link in the description below, just go to implicit.harvard.edu/input/takeatest.html. So we're going to click on I wish to proceed. And from here you can do disability, weight, age, race. So we're going to do the race test. And so it's basically a demographic survey. So once you it's a questionnaire. So we're not going to go through all of this, but we are going to take a break because we've got a lot more show to do, but we'll continue this later. When we come back, teacher is a cheater. And I'm going to answer the questions while the story plays, so please stay with us. Okay, welcome back. So I just finished the questionnaire. Now I'm going to go into this part of the test. And if you're going to play along with this, then you can answer the questionnaire first before you go to this next step. You're going to need to use 2 index fingers for this. You're going to press the E and the I on your keyboard. This is how it works. The white people is good. The black people is bad. Horrific, failure, sick, annoying, dirty, angry, abuse, nasty. That's the bad. Spectacular, for good, spectacular, triumph, cheer, pleasure, smiling, glorious, adore, and glad. There's 7 parts. Each part. So you're going to watch me do this, and I want you to pay attention as you do this. So, if we're ready, let's do it. So here's how we go. It's 7 pages. E for white, I for black. You press the space bar, we're ready to start, and here we go. Doesn't matter how fast you're going. Okay. You go as fast as you can. I can just. We're gonna talk about our next story while I'm doing this. So what you're probably pleased to know that your child is taking a test, and so with that being happening, there are plenty of people here. There are plenty of people that are taking the standardized achievement test or the SATs. In other words, people could just read, write, and compute a lot better than the older brother could, like say 5 years ago. But the bad news could be this: evidence of high scores can be cheating. Your kids may not be cheating, but teachers might be. Teachers, a cheater is open secret in school districts all over the country. And many people want those high test scores. But as we first showed you, when we first told you about this, there was one teacher involved that was there are some things about change you don't know. Teacher about to meet says it happened to her. So, during the investigation, it's just clear there were not enough trials to determine the result. And so, you can, but it will determine your result. But if you didn't take the test, well, it's probably because of the results. So, that's a shame. So, with this in mind, here's Molly Safer with our second look.
Want to remind you that this morning you will be taking tests in the areas of language and mathematics. These tests are very important to each of you and to our school.
There's supposed to be great security surrounding achievement tests. Teachers must sign out for the tests and the students' answer sheets.
Thank you.
Tests are supposed to be sealed. Often they are not. Since the point of the test is to learn what children know, and when they know it, teachers are not supposed to know what questions are on the test. So they will not, even subconsciously, teach the test to their classes. That's the theory. But one South Carolina teacher who's reluctant to show her face for fear of losing her job says at her school, all the teachers know what's on the test, and the principal encourages them to cheat.
Has he ever said, cheat, give them the answers, give them the questions, teach the test?
Teach the items that are on the test, teach the material that will be on the test.
How do you know what's on the test?
We see the test.
She says the school administration gave her the test a week before test day. When she questioned this, she says she was told by her principal to be a team player.
Have you ever looked at those papers the kids turned in and corrected them?
I've never changed them, but I know people that have.
People at your school have changed answers?
Yes.
It can be as blatant as that. But the most common form of cheating is what teachers euphemistically call test preparation. See the test, then teach the test. That's a crime in South Carolina. Only one teacher has ever been prosecuted, Nancy Yergin.
You gave them the exact questions and answers.
I simply taught the material, but I used the specific material that was going to be asked in the test. I didn't teach them all about all of the invasions in World War II, knowing that only the Berlin airlift was going to be covered. I just simply dealt with the Berlin airlift.
And the question and the answer.
Yes, exactly the material they would be asked. And I did not give them any of the related material that might confuse them.
You zeroed them in on
Yes, I did.
Precisely the question.
Yes, I tried.
Precisely the answer.
The exact material.
And the same questions were used year after year, correct?
Right. This was, when I gave the test last year, that was the 8th year the same identical test had been used verbatim.
Nancy Jurgen, among the most popular teachers at Greenville High, once named Teacher of the Year by the PTA. After she was caught, she says she heard from other teachers who told her cheating was commonplace.
I know some schools that have bi-weekly meetings in the grade levels to go over material that's going to be given on the test.
John Graham Altman, attorney and longtime member of the Charleston County School Board in South Carolina. Cheating in his school district, he says, is so widespread, the tests have become meaningless.
I think they have less value than a broken clock. They just don't give you any useful information.
The most compelling evidence Altman offers that there's something very fishy in the system is that while South Carolina's elementary and high school achievement scores soar over the national average, the state is at the bottom nationally in college boards and other tests local schools do not control.
I think it's just sheer fraud to tell a student or his parents that he's doing better than he really is.
The effect of this is that it allows poor schools to continue to be poor and escape the eye of public inquiry.
Dr. John Cannell has become something of a legend in the world of education. His watchdog group, called Friends for Education, has been tracking the whole business of achievement testing. He says the public education system is riddled with cheating, but the education establishment, in using test results to show progress, is committing a nationwide scam.
Headline story, front page story, Washington, D.C. students score well on national test. Well, that story is printed by the Chicago Tribune and the San Francisco Chronicle and the Los Angeles Times and even the New York Times. And everywhere, superintendents are able to feed these bogus test scores to the print media. The scores are printed, the superintendent gets their raises, and the people of that state are convinced that they're not part of a nation at risk.
Dr. Cannell says the only unusual thing about the Nancy Jurgen case was that it became public when this Greenville High teacher blew the whistle. She is Catherine Rice. A year ago, she was supervising an achievement test in her homeroom class when she saw one of Nancy Jurgen's students pull out a stack of notes.
I glanced at them and realized they were a copy of the test, a handwritten copy of the test with the answers underlined.
Questions?
Questions and answers. 6 pages.
Were you surprised by this?
Yes, I was floored.
I understand that he took the notes from that we took in class with him to the test and hoped to use them to help him answer the questions on the test. That was cheating.
But
where had he gotten the notes, right?
Where had he gotten the notes?
From me. Right. The material from me.
Nancy Jurgen says she was encouraged by her principal, Linda Ward, who she says told her that when she was a teacher, she had done similar preparation for her students, and that it was important to get those test scores up.
She said to me at that time, she looked at me and she said, "We've got to get more teachers doing what you're doing. They're playing that same game everywhere else and we're just not taking part."
That's not true. And I'm sorry that an untrue statement like that has been made. I never cheated, I never condoned cheating, I never encouraged cheating, and I never implicitly gave anyone a green light.
Is there pressure on you as principal to get those scores up?
No. No. We all like to have good scores. We like our school to show up well on that list in the newspaper. But the real pressure I feel is to do a good job with the curriculum. And of course I don't get a bonus. No matter what the scores are, principals don't get any bonuses.
But the school does.
The school gets some money, yes.
Not just the school. The state also rewards teachers, cash bonuses to those whose classes show improved test scores. A number of teachers at Greenville High received bonuses, Nancy Jurgen among them. Linda Ward denies putting pressure on teachers. She says when Nancy Jurgen was caught, she turned the matter over to the district superintendent. Nancy Jurgen says she did not tell the superintendent about the pressure she felt from her principal.
He said to me, "If I thought your principal knew about this, she would be in as much trouble as you're in." And when those words came out of his mouth, that really, I did not reveal that to him.
Why not?
Why? Because of my feeling for Linda.
Nancy Jurgen says she idolized Linda Ward, wanted to be like her, and even now, a year after the incident, she can barely mention her name without tears. Ward offered to let Jurgen resign. Jurgen chose to fight. It became a public issue. WYFF, a local TV station, covered a public hearing in which a crowd of parents and students rallied to Jurgen's support.
She takes time with us and she really explains everything in detail and she cares about us and she really shows it.
To no avail. She was fired and shortly after was arrested for breach of test security. She took to the airwaves.
Do you think it was bad that your son was given that study sheet ahead of time?
Absolutely not. We love you, Nancy.
Live.
Hang in there.
Thank you. I appreciate your support.
But finally, her nerve gave out and she pleaded guilty and was fined $500. The 90-day jail sentence was suspended, and then the final blow. Her teaching certificate was withdrawn. Nancy Jurgen will never teach again.
I didn't establish the penalties, nor did she, but she certainly knew prior to cheating what the possible consequence was.
Can you and Linda Ward look at each other in the eye these days?
I haven't seen Linda in a long time. I would like to. But I don't think she wants to see me.
What would you say to her?
I'm sorry.
The state accused her of cheating for money, for the total of $5,000 in bonuses she received over 2 years. She denies it. She says she was only trying to help the poor kids, the black kids.
A lot of these children are disadvantaged, and for them to have an experience, one more knockdown experience, and one more time of being told, you're nothing, you're stupid, you're less than quality. You're told that often enough, pretty soon you believe it. And then you wonder why they don't want to stay in school.
Dr. Cannell believes Nancy Jurgen's attitude is common. That the net effect of making exceptions for the poor and the black at test time is a form of racism.
In fact, what these tests do is hide the great inequality in American education. If you're born poor and black in South Carolina, you're going to stay poor and black all your life because of public schools. When you finish the public schools in South Carolina, you're going to be illiterate.
Cannell concentrates his anger on achievement testing in the poorest parts of the country. But the corruption of the system seems to be everywhere. The Franklin Avenue School in Los Angeles, one of 68 California schools in which principals and teachers were caught cheating, caught erasing and correcting wrong answers. In Memphis, Tennessee, one teacher confessed that with the principal's complicity, students were given copies of the test before taking it. And teachers have been caught cheating in Texas and Illinois.
Everybody in education knows what's going on. And the State Department of Education is one of the greatest culprits here in this state. They ride those test scores. And they go up and they say, give us more money, hire more people, pay them bigger salaries. It's a racket. And the public's suffering for it. And the taxpayers are hurting, and I guess most of all, the kids are hurting.
Dr. Charlie Williams, the superintendent of South Carolina's Department of Education, dismisses such allegations.
A lot of people may say a lot of things that don't make them accurate. That doesn't make them accurate.
He says the pressures teachers feel to get the scores up have a positive effect.
I think the pressure causes people to teach more effectively. The assumption that's being drawn by you and others is that pressure causes teachers to become cheaters and dishonest people.
I asked, how do you know that's not going on?
Well, first of all, most teachers are sincere about teaching kids rather than making the test scores look good.
People that think that need to come down to the real classroom and see what's going on.
If everybody knows, how come nothing's been done?
It doesn't benefit any school person to do anything about it. Can you think of one, well, I'm not supposed to be asking questions, but can you think of any school official who benefit from low test scores?
Never mind test scores, Dr. Cannell feels this whole story can be reduced to two fundamental questions.
What do your children know, and when do they know it? Because if you don't get an accurate answer to that question, your child is going to join the increasing numbers of young adult illiterates in this country, and it's going to be too late.
After the story aired, the State Department of Education wrote 60 Minutes claiming about what had happened. That was from the District Superintendent, Charlie Williams. Coming up next, school janitors and their pay. Don't go away. Could you ever imagine a job that are paying nearly double the national average, where reversely you just hire somebody to just be put on the payroll? Well, if it sounds like you can clean up on a job like that, then you would be right. What do? As we first told you about this a couple seasons ago, all you have to do is apply to the New York City Board of Education and tell them you'd like to be a school custodian. Here's Steve Crawford, second look.
Cleaning up as a New York City school custodian doesn't mean pushing a broom. Custodians are more like building superintendents than janitors. They're responsible for keeping the school well-maintained and clean. They hire their own staff, and thanks to the work rules, even they don't have to sweep very often. New York City school custodians have a list of perks, pay, and privileges that stuns almost anyone that's visited the rundown, dirty schools that make up much of the system. This is Erasmus Hall in Brooklyn, a building where 3,000 students try to get a high school education. The Board of Education didn't want 60 Minutes taping in its school corridors, but the president of the Erasmus Hall Parents Association offered to take us and our concealed camera on a tour. Up the dirty stairwells and down hallways covered with graffiti.
This is like 32 miles of the New York subway.
There was peeling paint everywhere and broken drinking fountains.
We've only got 2 water fountains operating in the school.
Then we went into the bathrooms.
There's absolutely no privacy and no facilities for cleaning yourself up appropriately.
And when the sights didn't shock you, the odors did.
What is the smell?
We have apparently some sewage leak underground. The odor is unbelievable. It's like living in a cesspool.
And everywhere, broken windows.
How long have these windows been broken?
The windows have been broken for weeks.
No one is claiming it's easy to maintain old and long-neglected schools, but almost everyone we talked to thought school custodians weren't doing the job as well as they should.
Tell me about Mr. White, the custodian. Is he ever here?
Mr. White, as I know it, and I'm here approximately every day, is here maybe a few hours a day. I've even had cleaners complain that he's seldom on the premises.
On the day we waited to see Mr. White, it was after 2 p.m. when he pulled up to the school gate. He was gone by 4:15. None of this is a surprise to John Fager, chairman of the Citywide Parents Coalition. He began to get interested in the custodial system 8 years ago, when the principal of his children's school called to tell him that the cafeteria was so filthy it had been cited for a health code violation.
Can you imagine 1,000 kids eating in a small cafeteria? By the end of the week, if you only scrub it once a week.
They only have to scrub it once a week?
They only scrub the cafeteria floor once a week.
How often do they have to clean the classrooms?
Every other day.
Every other day?
Every other day.
How often do they have to mop the floors?
They mop 3 times a year.
You're kidding.
No, they mop and wax 3 times a year. It's a basic sweeping. That's what goes on every other day.
What do they do the rest of the time?
No one really knows.
New York Schools Chancellor Joe Fernandez is the latest in a long list of reformers who have tried to sweep away a bizarre set of contract regulations and work rules that allows the city school custodians to clean up all the way to the bank. Fernandez says it's a problem he began to deal with on his very first day on the job 2.5 years ago.
I walked into my office and I saw these telephone wires that were laying around the floor all over the rug. And I asked for the custodian to come up to clean the thing, and I was told that they don't vacuum it until next week. This is our schedule. Of course, I hit the ceiling.
Do the custodians paint?
Yeah. However, they only can paint up to 8 feet. Some of these things I'm going to tell you are going to sound ludicrous, but it's the reality.
8 feet?
It's a jurisdictional issue with the painters union.
I want to make sure that I've got my figures right, because we've been told that the average base salary for a custodian in New York City is $58,000 a year.
Yeah, that's the average, right?
Which is $20,000 more than a teacher makes.
Yeah, that's right. That's absolutely correct. That's one of the problems I have.
That salary gap is not a problem for James Kelly, the custodian at Intermediate School 70 and the president of Local 891 of the International Union of Operating Engineers, the 1,000-member custodians local.
To compare us to teachers is a very unfair comparison. It's not our fault to begin with that the Board of Education does not pay its teachers enough. But I think it's unfair to compare us to teachers. First of all, we work all year round. Teachers work about half the hours we do. So just in time alone, the hours we spend in the school building versus what a teacher or anybody else in the building other than us spends, there's a big difference there.
That's the justification for the 20,000 salary difference.
I would say so.
You think your men are underpaid?
Absolutely, of course.
Kelly blames the shape the schools are in on the Board of Education. He says it sets the cleaning schedule, not the union, and that custodians' work orders for major maintenance languish in the board's backed-up bureaucracy. But teachers, principals, and parents we talk to think that the custodians could be doing a lot of the work themselves.
The joke among the principals is when they die and they want to come back to Earth as custodians.
Reincarnate as a custodian, that's not a bad idea. I often tell the story when I first got here to New York and I went to visit a school in the South Bronx. It was a very nice school, very well done, but I walked into the front door and I saw this person in a suit, shirt, and tie, and I thought it was the principal. I went over and introduced myself. It was the head custodian with his own office and everything.
His own office often means his own secretary, and his own secretary often means his own wife, and an additional $25,000 to $30,000 in family income. While nepotism was banned in a rare contract reform, relatives and wives already on the payroll were grandfathered into their jobs. And today, according to school administrators, custodians simply get around the rule by hiring each other's wives.
There are custodians who have other custodians' wives working for them. That's correct.
Good practice?
Well, it's not so easy to find capable people all the time to do a particular job. So
they hire their wives.
They can hire their wives. They can hire their wives.
So they hire someone else's wife. They hire one of their friends' wives.
Almost all married women are somebody else's wife, right?
It sounds like a pretty good job.
Yeah, I guess if you want to make a lot of money and you want to get some of your family working and you want to have a Jeep and a lot of other perks, it's a great job. Yeah,
Jeep?
So, Jeep. Yeah. The Board of Ed spends $1 million a year subsidizing the custodians purchasing of Jeeps.
Why do they need a Jeep?
Well, Steve, you're not aware of this, I know, but according to the contract, New York City is in a snow belt. And we have a 5 out of 12 months are snow season. So the board spends 5/12, buys 5/12 of the Jeep, and the custodian buys 7/12. But after 5 years, guess who ends up owning the Jeep outright?
The custodians.
The custodian. All right.
How much money would it cost you to get the schoolyard plowed if it snowed? If you were going to go out and hire somebody to do it?
It'll cost you nothing because in New York City, you wait till 3 o'clock that afternoon and it all melts.
Earlier this year, Chancellor Fernandez put a hold on buying new utility vehicles, no matter what brand everybody calls them Jeeps, by insisting that custodians get his personal approval before every purchase. It's a rule the custodians union expects to overturn in arbitration.
I may lose that, but at least we're fighting the good fight on this. You speak to anybody out there and they will tell you that the custodial contract has to be changed, that there are things in a custodial contract that can't stay in there any longer.
Fernandez isn't the first person to say that. The Women's City Club of New York said the same thing in this report, and that was back in 1942. Over the years, the Board of Education has been unwilling to take on the politically powerful union, and local principals have been afraid to take on individual custodians who run their schools as private fiefdoms.
You can go out and talk to principals, and if they're courageous enough, some of the principals will tell you is that they're afraid of giving the custodians a bad evaluation because they'll take it out on them in other ways than maintaining the building.
We took the chancellor's advice and tried to talk with some principals. We called more than 3 dozen. Plenty had tales to tell off the record, but not in front of our cameras. One principal who was willing to talk was later instructed to cancel her interview by her district superintendent. A matter of personal safety, he told her. 2 others said that they'd had their tires slashed after talking to reporters. Finally, we found one principal willing to speak out.
Gloria Rakovic at Brooklyn's High School of Telecommunications told us the biggest problem is the custodians don't work for the principal.
She has no control over her school's maintenance schedule, budget, or custodial staff. The custodians answer only to a central maintenance office. Mrs. Rakovic says her present custodian does a good job, but in the past, she's been saddled with what she calls
the vanishing custodian. Recently I had one who was absent for 75 days out of the school year.
Which is what, 180 days?
180 days, so you're figuring you're almost at a 50% absentee rate. There are emergencies that happen in the building. The custodian is my technical consultant. I need that person. I depend on that person.
And you had one custodian that was here barely half the time?
That's right. Exactly.
Is the case of the vanishing custodian fairly common in New York City?
One of the issues at hand from colleagues that I hear about simply is, I don't know where my custodian is.
They may not know, but Ed Stanzik does. Stanzik, a former rackets prosecutor, is the independent special commissioner for investigation for New York schools.
There are people who conduct completely different careers outside the school on board at that time. We have a custodian who's a charter pilot for hire, flying people around the country on board at that time.
Owns his own plane.
That's right. We have another custodian who's a practicing real estate attorney. We got complaints from the principal he could never reach the custodian because he was in court. That's not the same thing as someone calling in sick so they can go fishing.
The overwhelming majority of custodians are right on site at all times. There are any number of reasons you have to go out, leave the building or leave the site to do a particular thing. But our men are on the jobs.
Mr. Kelly is apparently unfamiliar with William Ryan, New York school custodian. Mr. Ryan is custodian of a school administrative building in Brooklyn. On the day we followed him, one of the many days where Ed Stanzik's investigators followed him, he arrived at his building at 8:45. He left on errands twice in the morning, and by 11:45 he was gone for the day. After a leisurely lunch at a seaside restaurant, he was off to Long Beach, Long Island, and an afternoon aboard his 34-foot cabin cruiser. All of it on school time.
In the time that we've been watching him, at least half of that time, he's been outside the school working on his cabin cruiser while he should have been in school and was getting paid to be in school.
How many William Ryans are there out there?
I can't give you a number. I can tell you that there's 100 or 200 William Ryans out there. I can tell you that as we've looked at the problem both historically up to the present day, the cases that we're doing, it's a persistent enough problem that you can't just say it's a couple of bad apples.
But Stanzik says vanishing custodians are only part of what his investigation has turned up. Remember those Jeeps? Well, like everything else the custodians pay for, from floor wax to computers,
the money for his salary, his workers' salaries, and his expenses comes payable to him personally. It typically goes into his personal checkbook with the money.
He gets a check from the city and he just puts it in his bank account?
That's right. And it gets mixed up with the money he uses to buy his groceries and make his car payments and everything else.
Is there any oversight at all?
There is oversight, but a system like that has many opportunities for someone with larceny in his heart to get around the controls.
In the last couple of years, you've had to cut $750 million out of your budget. You've had to do away with programs. You've had teachers' jobs on the line. Why can't you change this?
It's a matter of what's in a contract and what has to be implemented. We are looking, as I said, at the entire custodial contract. I would love to be able to pay teachers what we pay custodians.
Do you understand how ridiculous that sounds?
Of course it's ridiculous. Of course it's ridiculous.
And New York City's not alone. In many big cities across the country, more than half the school salary checks every month go to people other than teachers. In New York this week, there was a move to change that. As the result of the special commissioner's investigation, 3 school custodians, including our yachtsman, were arrested. 5 others will probably be fired. And those who aren't will, if all goes according to plan, from now on report to the principal. How does the president of the union feel about this? Well, he's no longer president of the union. He didn't get reelected.
Nobody else got elected. We're going to take a break. We're right back. You know, I was in Walmart, and I was going to the game section, and I saw all versions of Monopoly. Now, if you have not paid attention to this broadcast, we talked about Monopoly many years ago as to where Monopoly flips tables, ruins friendships, and even flips tables, ruins friendships, and ends in divorce. Nobody liked it. You mean you be playing the game 2.5 hours and all of a sudden, I quit! It's 4 in the morning when you win! I'm sitting on a Baltic with crap! Nana is cheating! And I hate you to the bank, and wait to get the pink 50s! I mean, who would want to play Monopoly? I wouldn't. I would not play Monopoly even though it would be ended in a gun. Like this.
$100 bills. Then you buy another $100 property. Now you gonna buy houses next? This is a problem. Where them figures come from? I quit. I quit, Lord. You didn't have no figures in your hand. I quit. You didn't have one figure in your hand. I got the figures from the middle. She paid 75 for this nigga is cheating. I quit, man. I quit, dog. I can't get him in that game. I quit, Skate. I quit. I'm not about to argue with you, and I know somebody is cheating, dog. You got like 350s in your hand, and they got like more than $1,000 for free parking. Oh my! I quit, man. I quit, man. And why you know I'm telling the fucking truth? This nigga is cheating, man. And then he got folk. You gotta fuck out of here, dog. Oh, gee, man. $1,000.
No, you ain't paying no bills.
What's the rules, gang? I don't know. Yeah, I thought so, motherfucker. You never know when you're wrong. When everybody...
Damn. Pop on now, pop no fun in the bills. Here's my phone no bills. It's a friendship breaker. Monopoly breaks friendships. So if you're gonna play Monopoly, play nice. But if it's to where it's gonna break your friendships and flips the table, then let Dane cook. Tell you. I can't say that because of demonetization. That's all for this edition of Second Look Saturday. Next Saturday, Sean's story. A lesson in life. All about Down syndrome. Not just Down syndrome and a story about Sean, but inclusion. A lesson in life for Sean. That's next Saturday. That's all for this edition of Give and Break Second Look Saturday. Going to Sunday. Going to Give and Break. That's all for this edition of Second Look Give and Break Second Look Saturday. Going into Sunday. We'll see you again for Give Me a Break Monday. For all of us here YouTube men, give me a break. Stop bullying, speak up. Concentration, not strength. No jaywalking. Take care of yourself and each other. Good night.